The galaxy burned. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The Galactic Accord had promised peace, unity, and prosperity for all species under the banner of the Interstellar Coalition. But promises, as it turned out, were fragile things. When the Accord shattered, it took entire civilizations with it. And in the ashes of that broken peace, they called her a war criminal. Her name was Kaela Veyra, once a decorated commander of the Coalition's elite strike force, the Void Reapers. Now she was a fugitive, hunted by the very people she had sworn to protect. Her crimes, they said, were unspeakable. Massacres on frontier worlds, the destruction of civilian habitats, and the annihilation of an entire fleet of Coalition ships. The evidence was damning, the verdict unanimous. Kaela Veyra was a monster. But the truth was far more complicated. The first time they came for her, she was on the edge of the Kesari Expanse, a desolate region of space where the stars were sparse and the silence was deafening. Her ship, the Eclipse, was running on fumes, its hull scorched and scarred from countless battles. She had been on the run for months, jumping from system to system, always one step ahead of her pursuers. But this time they had caught up. The Coalition cruiser Judicator emerged from hyperspace, its sleek, angular form bristling with weapons. Kaela's sensors lit up with warnings, but she didn't need them to know she was outmatched. The Judicator was a behemoth, a ship designed to bring entire planets to their knees. And it was here for her. Kaela Veyra, a voice boomed over the comms, cold and unyielding. This is Captain Taryn Solis of the Coalition vessel Judicator. You are under arrest for crimes against the Galactic Accord. Surrender immediately, or we will open fire. Kaela leaned back in her chair, her fingers hovering over the controls. She could run, but the Eclipse wouldn't make it far. She could fight, but that would only end in her death. Neither option appealed to her. Captain Solis, she replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. I don't expect you to believe me, but I didn't do what they say I did. I'm not the monster they've made me out to be. There was a pause, and for a moment, Kaela dared to hope that Solis might listen. But then the response came, sharp and final. Save it for the tribunal, Veyra. This is your last chance. Surrender, or we will destroy you. Kaela closed her eyes, her mind racing. She had no illusions about what would happen if she surrendered. The Coalition would parade her before the galaxy, a symbol of everything they claimed to stand against. They would strip her of her dignity, her honor, and her life. And the truth, the real truth, would die with her. But what choice did she have? The Judicator's hangar bay was a stark, sterile place, all gleaming metal and harsh lighting. Kaela stood in the center of it, her hands bound in magnetic cuffs, surrounded by a dozen armed guards. They eyed her with a mixture of fear and hatred, their weapons trained on her as though she might explode at any moment. Captain Solis approached, her expression unreadable. She was tall and imposing, her uniform immaculate, her eyes cold and calculating. She stopped a few feet away, studying Kaela with a gaze that seemed to pierce straight through her. You don't look like a war criminal, Solis said, her tone almost conversational. Kaela met her gaze, unflinching. Looks can be deceiving. Solis raised an eyebrow. Is that an admission of guilt? It's a statement of fact, Kaela replied. You've already made up your mind about me. Nothing I say will change that. Solis regarded her for a long moment, then gestured to the guards. Take her to the brig. We'll hand her over to the tribunal when we reach Coalition space. As the guards led her away, Kaela's mind raced. She had to find a way out of this. She couldn't let them silence her. Not when the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The brig was a small, windowless cell, its walls lined with energy dampeners to prevent any escape attempts. Kaela sat on the narrow bunk, her hands still bound, her thoughts a whirlwind of desperation and determination. She had to make Solis listen. She had to make her understand. When the cell door slid open hours later, Kaela was ready. Solis stepped inside, her expression as unreadable as ever. "You asked to speak with me," Solis said, crossing her arms. "Make it quick." Kaela took a deep breath. "You've seen the reports. You've seen what they say I did. But have you ever stopped to ask why? Why would I, a loyal soldier of the Coalition, suddenly turn against everything I believed in?" Solis frowned. "I don't have time for your excuses, Veyra." "It's not an excuse," Kaela shot back. "It's the truth. I was framed. The real war criminals are still out there, and they're using me as a scapegoat to cover their tracks." Solis's frown deepened. "And who exactly are these real war criminals?" Kaela hesitated. She knew how this would sound, but she had no choice. "The High Council," she said. "Or at least some of them. They've been working with the Zorathians, orchestrating false flag attacks to justify a full-scale war. I found out, and they made sure I took the fall." For a moment Solis said nothing. Then she shook her head. "That's quite the conspiracy theory, Veyra. Do you have any proof?" "I did," Kaela admitted. "But they destroyed it. That's why they're so desperate to silence me. Because I know the truth." Solis studied her, her expression unreadable. Then she turned and walked to the door. "I'll take your claims under advisement," she said. "But until I see evidence, you're still a prisoner." As the door slid shut behind her, Kaela slumped back against the wall. She had failed. Solis didn't believe her. No one would. But then, as the hours passed, something unexpected happened. The cell door opened again, and Solis stepped inside. This time she was alone. "I've been thinking about what you said," Solis began, her voice low. "And I'll admit, there are inconsistencies in the case against you. Things that don't add up." Kaela's heart leapt. "So you believe me?" "I didn't say that," Solis replied. "But I'm willing to give you a chance to prove your innocence. If what you're saying is true, then the consequences are too great to ignore." Kaela nodded, hope flickering in her chest. "What do you need me to do?" Solis hesitated, then reached into her pocket and produced a small device. She pressed a button, and the energy dampeners in the cell deactivated. "We're going to find the truth," she said. "Together." The Judicator's bridge was a hive of activity as Solis and Kaela worked side by side, poring over data and cross-referencing reports. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. The false flag attacks, the forged evidence, the shadowy figures pulling the strings. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. But time was running out. "We need to get this to the Coalition High Command," Solis said, her voice tense. "If we can expose the conspiracy before they launch their war." "They'll kill us first," Kaela interrupted. "They've already proven they'll do whatever it takes to protect their secrets." Solis nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to take the fight to them." The final battle was a blur of chaos and carnage. The Judicator and the Eclipse fought side by side against a fleet of rogue coalition ships, their crews united.